Well, to talk about media regulation, we'll be joined here in the studio this morning by the Justice Minister, Brendan O'Connor, and as Home Affairs Minister, he has an interest too in the Malaysian agreement. But before then, we'll see what the Sunday papers are saying around the country, and as you would expect, the massacre in Norway is the lead in most of the newspapers, but the newspaper with the latest deadline, the Sunday Times in Perth, is now leading with Cadell Evans' victory in France and the death of Amy Winehouse. But for our purposes and the politics this morning, and Misha in the Sunday Age under the headline or the byline, Misha Schubert, fresh details about what might be in the Malaysian agreement when it's released tomorrow.
That's right, and our understanding is that work rights will be conferred on any people who are deported to Malaysia under this pact, which answers some of the questions that refugee advocates and the UNHCR have had for a long time about whether people would be returned, essentially on a par with the other asylum seekers who live in Malaysia now are a kind of a shadow population. They don't have legal rights. They're treated like illegal immigrants at the moment, and so they don't have access to public schools or the capacity to legally work and support themselves, even though they're out living in the community rather than in detention facilities. So this would at least provide them with some ability to earn an income and support themselves whilst they're awaiting processing and resettlement in another country eventually. It doesn't answer the refugee advocates' qualms about the whole plan, but it does give us a bit more detail about where this has gone.
But it does raise the question, though, if they get special privileges ahead of those that are already in Malaysia, then might that in itself make the risky boat trip worthwhile?
Well, the government believes that even so, they would still be risking losing $20,000, $30,000 to take a family through that perilous course of a journey at sea off to Australia and then have the risk of just being returned again and again, so that there wouldn't be a significant incentive based on giving them that sort of normal legal status there. We'll have to see as the debate unfolds a bit further whether other people buy that.
It'll be interesting to see what, if anything, this means for the, 80,000 or more illegal immigrants, illegal asylum seekers, asylum seekers in Malaysia already. I imagine some human rights lawyers in Kuala Lumpur will be looking at it pretty closely.
Absolutely.
And Dennis, in Julia Gillard's seat, there's an opinion poll commissioned, well, I'm not sure whether it was commissioned by the Herald Sun, but they've published it, and it basically looks at the question of trust, it looks at the carbon tax, and it looks at the two-party preferred.
Yes, I think Julia Gillard would be pretty happy with the question of trust. There's 57% of people in her electorate think she's very or quite trustworthy, which I think she'd take to the bank on any day at the moment. The other bit's not so good. It's an 18% primary swing. She still does pretty well on two-party preferred, 58%, and on the carbon tax, a clear majority of those surveyed, 43% of those surveyed are against it, and only 1/3 in favour of it. And also she only just squeaks in the favourable stakes, 44 to 40%. In a safe Labor seat, these are not good numbers for the Labor Party. There is some question about the way the poll was conducted. It's done by John Scales, and he uses robocalls, so it's automated calls rather than actual people surveying. And from what I understand, the carbon tax question was asked first. Now, the way you conduct an opinion poll is you always ask people to think about politics, and then you ask them how they're going to vote. You get that question out of the way. That's seen as the threshold question, and then you go on to issues. Pollsters say that to put an issue before you ask people how they're going to vote pollutes the how you're going to vote question.
Especially if the questions go to trust and the carbon tax, I guess.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah. And Michael Stutchbury, Mary Jo Fisher, the Liberal senator, who's got into trouble with on potentially shoplifting and assault charges, is saying that she'll be fighting this.
Yes, Barry, this is the Adelaide Sunday Mail concerning the South Australian Senator Mary Jo Fisher. Reputation as being a little bit zany, and she did a little dance in the Senate the other day facing theft and assault charges. He alleged to have attempted to take groceries valued at $92.92 from a Frueville Foodland store, and she's got Andrew Robb, the Liberal frontbencher, who himself has had well publicised depression-like issues, and he's come out and said that Senator Fisher was at a difficult stage where nothing seemed to be working, and she was in the middle of changing medication, and it's pretty clear that she's going to fight these charges. I must say, Barry, though, that there's a story, but my eye did get drawn to the one story next to this one, which is Lara Bingle. And this is Lara Bingle. It's a story about Friday's cover feature, because we're talking about privacy, I think, here. Friday's cover feature in Who magazine, in which Bingle and her high-profile British footballer boyfriend parade their new love in Bora Bora, and it showcases a whole lot of issues in this. But she's now complaining about the paparazzi, and she wants to take some sort of action against the paparazzi because of invasion of privacy. And she says, "I do think, like anyone else, I'm entitled to a degree of privacy."
And of course she is, along with everybody else.
Well, of course, sure. Sure. she wants some sort of action, us to take action to protect her privacy, when, of course, she's
built a whole career
about this sort of...
Well, we'll certainly come back to that topic, and we will with our next guest as well. That is the Sunday Papers. Now we'll go to our studio guests, the Minister for Home Affairs and Justice, Brendan O'Connor. And while he joins us, let's get Tony Abbott's take on the media changes the government is flagging.
Politicians don't always like the coverage that they get, but if you're in public life, you've got to take the rough with the smooth. And a vigorous, critical media is an important part of a healthy democracy, and I think the Prime Minister should accept that. There are two separate issues here. There's the Prime Minister's quite unjustified attempt to say that News Limited in Australia has similar issues to News Corp in the United Kingdom. And then there's the question of privacy. Now, I'm happy to look at proposals for greater privacy protection, but what I will never support is any attempt to try to bluff the media out of doing its job, which is to hold bad governments to account.